I drew a lot of pictures. I drew them for no one but me. I just wanted to know what the characters looked like. So anyway, that was Argus Filch. No prizes. Snape, obviously. That is Harry arriving in Privet Drive with Professor McGonagall and Hagrid and Dumbledore. That was a Gringotts cart. Mirror of Erised. That's the Weasleys. Professor Sprout. I like this one. I thought I'd lost this picture, actually, because I was going to show it to Chris Columbus. And true to form, I only found it when it was no use, and they'd already filmed that bit anyway. But this is how the entrance to Diagon Alley works in my imagination. So Chris is going to murder me when he finds out I had a blueprint all along, and he was asking me how it worked. But it was buried in the box.
Welcome, Harry, to Diagon Alley.
As J.K. Rowling continued to build Harry's world, her own fell apart. She arrived in Edinburgh in 1993 after a brief time teaching English in Portugal. There she'd married, had a baby, and then left her husband. She had no job, virtually no money, and a tiny daughter to support.
That was the phase where the penniless single mother sort of tag to my name came along, which was true, but it wasn't enough that I was a penniless single mother. I had to write on napkins because I couldn't afford paper, and then we started straying into the realms of the ridiculous. Let's not exaggerate here. Let's not pretend I had to write on napkins, because I didn't. They started sort of adding little bits and pieces that just weren't necessary because the stark reality was bad enough.
Haven't been back here since 1994 when I moved out, and I don't like being back here, which is no offence to the place, but I've kind of avoided this place since I moved out, in just in deference to the fact that it was a pretty unhappy 6 months. I did a lot of writing here. I would say it's here that really the first book became a book, as opposed to 3 chapters in a collection of notes. So we're going to go in then? Go.
You couldn't really, objectively speaking, look around and say, well, you've made a success of your life. I was 28. I was living on benefit. I was living on about £70 a week. I had no work. And to suddenly be in a position where actually I couldn't support myself, because obviously anyone who's tried to get state childcare will know that you'll be very lucky to get the kind of childcare that means you can work even part-time. So it was all a real shock to the system. Oh my God. This is so different. Oh my gosh. Oh wow, this is so different to how it was when I was here. This is nice. This is really nice. And I'm really glad. You just expect time to stand still when you've walked away from a place, and I should know better, but I have just been, every time I've come anywhere near this place or passed it in a bus or a taxi, I've imagined it exactly as it was when I lived here, and it's all been, I would be delighted to live here. This is great, actually. It's like an exorcism. Everything was just very, very, very dilapidated. And always filthy, which wasn't the flat's fault, it was normally my fault, because people very often say to me, how did you do it? How did you raise a baby and write a book? And the answer is, I didn't do housework for 4 years. I'm not Superwoman. And living in squalor, that was the answer. During the day, I was writing in cafes, as everyone famously knows. But could I just say, for the record, once and for all, because it's really irritating me, I did not write in cafes to escape my unheated flat, because I am not stupid enough to rent an unheated flat in Edinburgh in midwinter. It had heating. I went out and wrote in cafes because the way to make Jessica fall asleep was to keep her moving in the pushchair. So I used to take her out, tire her out, put her in the pushchair, walk her along, the moment she fell asleep, into the nearest cafe and write. So this is Nicholson's.
where I wrote huge parts of the book. This was a really great place to write because there are so many tables around here that I didn't feel too guilty about taking a table up for too long, and that was my favourite table. I always wanted to try and get that one because it was out of the way, in the corner. It was just great to look up when you were writing and stop and think about things and be able to look out on the street, which was quite busy. They were pretty tolerant of me in here, partly because one of the owners is my brother-in-law. And I used to say to them, well, you know, if it gets published, I'll try and get you loads of publicity. And it was all just a big joke. No one ever dreamt for a moment that was going to happen. To muster the willpower to keep going with no promise of publication, obviously I must have really believed in the story, and I did. I really believed in it. But it was more a feeling of, I have to do right by this book. I have to give it my best shot. But at the same time, my realistic side was reminding me that a completely unknown author always has a struggle to get published, and who knew? Just because I thought it was so great, was no guarantee that anyone else would like it.
J.K. Rowling sent her manuscripts off and lined herself up a literary agent, only to find that publishing houses threw Harry on the reject pile.
At the very beginning, we were very excited about it in the agency, but it was a very difficult book to sell. And then quite a large number of publishers turned it down. It was too long. It dealt with going away to school. Not politically correct.
Well, of course, everybody now denies turning it down and want to distance themselves from this terrible, terrible error.
Is it nice to name names? You're nodding, but I don't think it's very nice to name names.
It was all the major publishers we know.
Among them Puffin and Collins, for sure. It's like turning down the Beatles, isn't it? The very first question she asked me was, how do you feel about sequels? And then she told me the entire story of Harry Potter, all through the entire series. I realised, of course, that she knew exactly about this world and where it was going, who it was going to include, how the character would develop. And of course it was fascinating because this doesn't normally happen. Children's book characters don't grow up in real time normally. You know, they're locked in the time they are, and the sequels are endless reruns of the same kind of adventures. But to have a character developing in real time as his age developed was a really interesting idea. I gave Jo one memorable piece of advice. After our first lunch together, we were sitting down, and I said, the important thing, Jo, is for you to
keep your real job. He said, Barry said, and Christopher, my agent, also said to me,
Children's authors really don't make any money.
They both of them were at pains to say to me, you know, we really like the book, but, you know, it's not that commercial.
Bloomsbury Publishing acquired what would become the biggest phenomenon in modern literature for only £2,500. That's about $4,000.
That was second to the birth of my daughter, the best moment of my life. Christopher phoned me up on a Friday afternoon, and he said it so matter-of-factly.
She was speechless, certainly, for at least the period of time it takes to build up enough steam for a big scream, I think.
And he said, are you all right? Are you still there? And I said, well, it's just that my only lifetime ambition has just been fulfilled. And I was like, that was the best moment. Nothing since has come anywhere close to the fact that I was actually going to be in print. It was going to be an actual book in a bookshop. The best moment, oh my God.